Currently, we have about 20 active networks, and you will see that on our next slide. They are all over. We have Europe, we have Asia, Middle East, and South America. So if you're in any of these countries and would like to get involved, kindly reach out to me after this is done, and we'll get you plugged in. We also have a couple of countries that were previously engaged, but we don't have anyone that's active there. So if you know anyone, or if you're from one of these countries, we'll love to get you plugged in as well. So really excited to see all of the amazing activity that's going on. This weekend alone, we have like 3 events going on simultaneously in different countries. So it's super exciting to see that. And then without further ado, I would love to also just kind of pinpoint, we have a ton of ways that we can communicate with you all. So we have WeChat, we have WhatsApp, we have Line, Kakao Talk, Facebook, all of those channels. So if you are in any of these countries and you are wondering if there's a group chat, most likely there is. So just like send me a message and we'll get you added so that you can stay informed about what's going on in your city or in your country as well. And then I'd like to pass the mic over to Natalie and Rafa so that they can introduce themselves and share a little bit more about who they are.
Natalie, please go first.
Okay, thank you, Rafa. Well, hi, everybody. Nice to see all of you here. It's 10 a.m. in Atlanta. I'm on our Atlanta campus at Emory. I'm really glad to be joining with all of you. So my name is Dr. Natalie Cruz. I am the Associate Director of Global Strategy and Initiatives at Emory. So I wanted to share a little bit about our office and maybe some ways that you can continue to engage. You'll hear a lot more about the network from Rafa and from Jenny as well, but I'll share a little bit more about what's going on here university-wide. So the Office of Global Strategy and Initiatives is dedicated to the promotion, support, and expansion of Emory's international engagement. So through strategic internationalization of programs, curricula, and research, GSI supports creative global initiative, fosters cross-unit collaboration, promotes a culturally vibrant and diverse campus, and coordinates Emory international resources and partnerships. So you have all of the different individual schools like Emory College of Arts and Sciences, Oxford College, Goizueta Business School, nursing. So all of the different schools have their programs, their connections, and we're really coordinating and working with all of them to bring people together around international issues. And if you were an international student at Emory, no doubt you know the International Student and Scholar Services who maybe supported you through visa issues or engagement opportunities. So that's within my office as well. So we really are that central resource. We work with faculty, staff, students, alumni to enhance the global brand and footprint of the university. And I'm going to drop a link in the chat that's a really great resource for you on a couple of different levels. So this is our global map, and this has been recently updated, and it shows 6 different categories of global engagement for Emory. So it shows our faculty, students, scholars, alumni, partnerships, maybe organizations that we partner with around the world, and then students that are studying abroad or doing some sort of global experience coming from the Atlanta or Oxford campuses and going to out in the world for usually a shorter period of time. So this is a great resource to understand where Emory's engaged, and also perhaps it can give you ideas of, it doesn't have specific names, of course, of alumni, but it may give you an idea of some of the numbers and the folks that are engaged around the world. So, I'll say, I want to keep it brief to leave time for the conversation today for our excellent speaker. But I really encourage you, as you're going out in the world and you're working, with the Alumni Association, but keeping my content, I'll put my contact information in there as well, as you have ideas of maybe how you can work with my office to increase the awareness and brand of Emory around the world. That is really what I am, one of my big concerns is how can we continue and really enhance the work that Emory is doing abroad. We know it's a fantastic institution, cutting edge research and work, and sometimes it flies under the radar a little bit. So that's something that I'm really concerned with is how do we connect people globally? How do we work with the best institutions around the world to spread the great news of Emory? So I encourage you to reach out to me with any ideas you might have, any ways you want to be connected with the campus as well. I'd be happy to do that in addition to your fantastic connections at AAE. I think that's all, and I'll be happy to connect with anyone on LinkedIn or email, and you can certainly ask questions at any point in time if our schedule allows today. So thank you for the opportunity to be here and speak a little bit about my office and some of the work that I do.
Thanks, Natalie. My background is not as interesting as Natalie's for sure, but I'm Rafa. For those who don't know me, I've been leading the Brazilian chapter of Emory Alumni for the past 2 years and change, I guess, and especially over the past year, been working really closely to Jenny to create more connections and to shorten the gap between the Brazilian chapter and others across the globe. We are about 100 people strong down here. It's a powerful group, very well, connected with people sitting in very remarkable institutions doing a lot of fun stuff across all schools. So we're not only focused here on business, we're also speaking with people, from the law school, from medical school. Doesn't really matter which year they graduated from. So we're trying to get this group as diverse as possible. And it's been fun for the past couple of years to be close and working with these people. We're trying to do more and more, like I said, to connect everybody and also show how international Emory community could be. So I think this initiative was part of this webinar is part of that initiative to connect and to bring different perspectives. So I'm really happy to be here. I'm thrilled and really honored to have Christopher joining us to speak a little bit more about his career. And yeah, if by any reason you think about Brazil, either personally or for professionally, and if there's any way I can be of help, please don't hesitate to reach out. I think Jenny is going to circulate contacts later. If not, happy to, to be open on LinkedIn and stuff. And yeah, please think of us as a resource for you if you ever want to come down here to Brazil. That's it. With that, I'll pass the ball back to Natalie.
All right. Thank you so much. Rafa, it's great to hear. And I put a little bit more content, but Brazil is one of our priority countries here within our office and in our strategy. So I encourage you to check out on the map some of the ways that we're engaged with Brazil. So I think with that, I'm going to kick off our conversation. And I first want to do a brief introduction of our esteemed guest here, Christopher Carroll, and then I have a couple questions. Does that sound good, Christopher? And then I can let you further introduce yourself as well.
That's wonderful. Hello, everyone.
So our esteemed guest speaker today is Christopher Carroll, who is an 87 graduate of Oxford and the college. He's a recognized business leader with over 20 years of marketing and digital experience, who's successfully led global brands like Heineken and Under Armour. Of course, you've heard of those brands, and different organizations across the consumer goods, sports, retail, media, and technology sectors. And he's worked and lived in 7 different countries, including Brazil and Mexico. And he was responsible for marketing and digital at the International Olympic Committee. And he led the Olympic Games brand, digital marketing, strategic planning, data management, and digital innovation. So he's been an advisor to startup ventures, educational institutions, and NGOs to transform and innovate across the health and wellness industries. He's been a public speaker at many global forums and conferences, and he has a bachelor's in political science from Emory and was also captain of the Emory men's tennis team. So really cool experiences at Emory. So it's a little bit of a brief introduction so you can be thinking about, questions or ways you might be able to connect with him. So I'd love to start off with kind of a big picture question for you to jump us off is what pivotal experiences have you had, Chris, that have shaped your personal success story working in an international context?
Hello, everyone. It's Chris. I'm connecting today from Amsterdam, and so forth. So good morning to those in the Americas, and afternoon in Europe, and evenings over in Asia, and so forth. Um, to answer, Natalie, your question about pivotal experiences, I think actually coming to Emory was one of the pivotal experiences, and that's one of the messages I wanted to say because I'm an American, as you can hear in my accent, although I haven't lived in America most of my adult life. And essentially, what happened was at Emory, I was introduced to the international community, both at Oxford College, which I selected intentionally for more of a smaller environment before I moved to um, Emory's Metropolitan Atlanta campus. And then it continued over into Emory College and so forth. So the the first pivotal experience was getting exposure to international environments because I previously, growing up, hadn't had that. I grew up in an island off Boston called Cape Cod, Massachusetts. So that's number one. The second one was actually after Emory. And as I was preparing to go to graduate school, I actually took a year off and traveled. I went into Southeast Asia and Australia, spent a lot of my money traveling. But what that realized is living and exchanging with different um, cultures made me self-aware that there's a gigantic world out there beside my local environment. And the third thing is I learned a language. I learned Spanish. I speak 4 languages now, but it was the outside of my native tongue. It was pivotal for me to be able to communicate with people in their local languages and cultures. So those are some basic ones. At Emory, I was introduced to international culture. I built off that and then actually um, took my curiosity to international cultures and markets and lived among them. And three, I showed a little vulnerability and took a long time, but learned how to speak Spanish and that. And most people probably, are fluent in minimum 2 or 3 languages on this call. So, and you know how important that is.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I mean, that speaks to the importance of the work that, that we do at Emory, right? To provide these opportunities and encourage students to get involved in these different international experiences. It was transformative for you. Um, so you went to Southeast Asia, is that right? You said for about a year.
Yes, Australia and Southeast Asia, yes.
Okay, great. So you have, you've learned different languages, you've really been able to transform yourself and adapt in many different contexts, it sounds like. So I'd love to hear any recommendations or your experiences and how you effectively navigate transitions between roles and diverse cultural environments. How do you manage that?
Yeah, that's an important question, I would say. One is prepare yourself. You know, to familiarize yourself in the a culture, prepare yourself. Speak to people from that culture, understand what's important, do some reading, obviously, but really interact and prepare. That's number one. Number two is be yourself. Often people, when they go internationally and start working, they try to be someone, or they try to, in their adaptation to local cultures, they try to match the culture they're going to. And they should be themselves, as well as um, be aware of what your strengths are. I would say there. Um, and then I would network, 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 network. and interact with people, proactively get involved. And it's not just in professional environments necessarily, because often the valuable networks will come from a personal or place of passion, whether it be sports or culture or music or volunteering and so forth. Those are some general principles.
That's great. Thank you so much. I love particularly what you said about, not trying to just match the culture you're going to and just becoming that, but bringing your own unique spin, but taking into the cultural context.
Correct.
Because that's something I think that has shifted a bit, right? It was this idea of you need to adapt, you need to change yourself, right? And that kind of how are students adapting and on campus? And we've really moved past that, that it's about all the strengths you bring and finding that, your unique version and tapping into your culture, but being understanding of where you are. So I love to
Absolutely.
describe that, Chris. That was really
Thanks.
fantastic. So I'd love to ask kind of a question too. You mentioned a little bit about your international experiences at Emory. How was it being a student athlete and being an athlete? How did you fit that into your international experience? How were you able to learn more about yourself through that experience?
So and I hope we have some student athletes with us today. So please put it in the chat if you're a student athlete. Being a student athlete is usually rewarding, yet it is also a different path of your university experience because of the discipline and required how should I say this? Time. It just your time and what you're doing and so forth. That allows you, also being a student athlete, immediately puts you into a pool of international students within Emory. So automatically you become part of a community in doing that. But it's really about the discipline, to be honest, which being a student athlete, especially at a school as prestigious and as challenging as Emory, at least was for me. And specifically taking that discipline and transferring that discipline into the real world on an international setting was very valuable because you need that discipline to coexist, whether you're temporarily working in a different culture or whether you're relocating your entire family to a different culture.
Thank you for sharing about that and that takeaway as well. It's how you utilize not just, of course, your tennis skills, but like all those kind of soft skills, leadership skills that you
Yep.
learned as a part of that process. So I have one more question for you, and then I'm going to turn it over to Rafa. Is when you think about you mentioned the power and the importance of building a network, right? And there's a lot of ways, and you mentioned to be proactive as you're going in these different cultural contexts. So thinking about, the support coming out of Emory, leveraging Emory's resources and network and other the pathways you may have taken, what are some strategies that you have, Chris, that you could recommend for individuals who want to build a successful international career? How can they do that using Emory's resources as well?
Three things I would want to emphasize to the team here is: one, invest yourself in transferable skills that have no boundaries, and so forth. And that way, you yourself and your skills are going to be able to integrate into any type of business environment, whatever the sector and whatever the culture. Number two, relationships are not transactional or short term in the international environment. So as you're assembling relationships in the business world, as well as relationships from Emory, whether it's people that you know within the network or people that you just are becoming familiar with, approach it as it's going to be a long-term relationship and not what can I get from it now or what can I get from it short term. And that's really important if you want an international, because today someone may be sitting in Oxford, Georgia, but in 2 years they could be in, Vietnam, working and so forth. So that's number two. Number three is learning, and something I had to learn myself by doing. Be prepared to take decisions, both professionally and career, that maybe at the time one step back to take 2 steps forward. And I'll give you an example. I was fortunate enough to do projects and live in Tokyo, Japan, and Seoul, Korea. And then I was really fortunate to go and live in the Americas, in Mexico City, and even a better country called Brazil. And nothing against Mexico if we've got our Mexican alumni. And then I was up for a professional rotation, and it was scheduled to go to Brussels. And at the last minute, in the last month, the company changed their mind and said, if you still want to go to Europe, you can. The position has changed and you have to go to London. Well, I didn't want to go to London. I didn't want to live in a big city. I didn't want an English speaking experience. I wanted to live on the continent of Europe and so forth. But I did that. And that opened up a whole nother pathway. So at the time, it was a step back, especially for myself and my girlfriend or partner at the time, which then later became my wife, as well as my career path, I thought it was. But that experience opened up a whole nother set of experiences that led me to who I am as a person and as a business representative of the world. So 1, invest in transferable skills. 2, make sure relationships are not transactional. And 3, be willing to take that 1 step back to take 2 steps forward.
Awesome, Chris. Thank you so much. I'm taking copious notes over here because this is really great feedback and really great suggestions. I'm going to pass it over now to my colleague Rafa, and he can continue on with our panel discussion.
Thanks, Natalie. Chris, speak a little bit about career, a little bit more about career. I would love to hear if you could just give us a timeline of your tremendous path over the last few years. And of course, if you could spend some time speaking about your current role, what you've been doing, and what's unique about it, and any insights you could share. But again, we would love to hear the timeline.
Yeah, thank you. Obrigado. I left Emory and I studied political science, as Natalie mentioned, and so forth. And then I immediately after traveling, came back and started working for a law firm in Washington, D.C. and actually practicing the theory and so forth. After a couple of years, I realized the line of thought and theory I liked, but the actual business of law I didn't like. So I pivoted, and I actually combined. I tell this story about people from Emory all the time, of a Toronto management consultancy that had an office that was led by an Emory alumni who I had no idea at the time, that was managing a consultancy for the Coca-Cola company. And that was my first job. And it was brand management and marketing management at the time. That then let me into the international business world of the Coca-Cola company at the time. And then I was able to start traveling around the world with Coca-Cola, and I actually started working for Coca-Cola in various assignments around the world. And then over time, as I was assembling the international skill set, both in business management as well as in marketing and media, I was also assessing cultural skill sets in terms of how to work with different skill sets. And then I got recruited to Amsterdam, where I am today, coincidentally, to run the global marketing and media division for Heineken International, which was at an interesting time where the sector of beer was consolidating, and there was heavy regulations similar to the tobacco industry. And when you're in marketing and trying to generate profit. I was able to apply our skills, and it was a global role at headquarters. And then a fascinating role came into me, which was Under Armour, which for the Americans are very familiar with. But the challenge at that time period was the brand and the business was 97% in North America. And the aspiration was to scale it and go international. So I had the wonderful opportunity to be a leader and on the management team internationally, which was coincidentally based in Amsterdam. So for myself and my family, I didn't have to relocate to a different country at that time, which fit our personal situation. I just had to change my bike ride to work, which was great and a new experience. And then a small company came up, a startup company that was based on data and data science and commercializing data. And they wanted an experienced person in Amsterdam to have an international outlook with an intention to start it up, to scale it up for sale. I hadn't had that skill and that experience to my career. So I really jumped at that and did that for 3-4 years. And then I came to my latest role, which was basically managing all the marketing and digital initiatives for one of the world's largest NGOs, the International Olympic Committee, and was able to implement during, let's say, historic times of the Tokyo Olympics and the Beijing Olympics and so forth. So it's difficult always talking about yourself, but that kind of fills in the timeline of kind of my arc of career, but also gives insight into a little bit of my personality that generally you need to be flexible, yet curious, yet have a vision of what you would like to do to start an international business career.
Awesome, amazing. So of course, as a good Brazilian, I can help but ask you a little bit more about the Rio Olympics. But before jumping into business, just wanted to know, when Neymar scored against Germany and we finally won the title, did you celebrate with a bottle of Coke or with a bottle of Heineken?
I was actually at the Heineken Olympic House in
Okay.
Rio,
Okay.
so I will say with a Heineken.
Okay, so as Emory alumni, we're not gonna take that personal, right?
No, don't.
But
I don't.
okay, good to know. But yeah, if you could, share a little bit more about the process about the Rio Olympics. If you could touch a little, I don't know if you were at the time that Rio was picked as the host city, and how it played out the process.
So Heineken was a sponsor of the Olympics through Rio, but I wasn't working. I was working for Heineken, not working for an Under Armour during the Rio Olympics, and not for the IOC, ironically. But I was in Rio, and I'm very familiar with the preparation, the delivery, and then the posts of the Rio Olympics. So where do I start? Where do I start about Brazil? First of all, this is the first Olympics in that continent. So we need to put that into context. That's a significant milestone in what the importance of the Olympics is. That's number one. Number two, there was several memorable on-field performances, and Rafa, you just said one, which was Neymar scoring the penalty goal against Germany to win the gold medal. That's 2014. So we're 2016. So we're talking 8 years ago, and so forth. But it seems like yesterday. The opening ceremonies in Brazil and in Rio is something that only the Brazilians, the way they delivered that, it really represented the local culture and importantly the local people. Beach volleyball and the staging of beach volleyball and the aesthetics of beach volleyball really were representative of the Brazilian culture and people, and I think that's important with any Olympics. Is you've got a direct reflection. You're not only staging something for the rest of the world, but you should be doing that with local flavor or spice, as I say. And certainly, Michael Phelps and Usain Bolt's, career moments were great. But importantly for me, about Rio is its legacy, and so forth, because going into any of these mega events, including the Olympics, there's a lot of society and government discussion, financial debate, even controversy that certainly in Brazil, sacrifices. But what's key is what's the legacy? Well, in Brazil's legacy is emerging now in three areas. One, getting more youth to actually move and participate, so grassroots sports. So that's good. Two is the arenas, these structures that were built and so forth are starting to be handed over in the education sector to become schools and facilities. So I think it's the karaoke arena number 3 is now becoming a school, for example. So that's really important that there's, you're eating, living, and breathing legacy. And then in all our societies, wherever you're connecting from, there's social inequality. We need to be more socially equal. And Brazil and Rio has started being able to leverage their Olympic history to try to attack that locally as well.
Awesome. And you mentioned early in your comment about the opening ceremony in Brazil. I remember that was like it blew everyone's mind. It was like something really unique and everything. From a marketing perspective, was that something you guys were sort of expecting, or that really, took you guys by surprise? Were you celebrating afterwards? I remember there was, I think, a concert by Yvette, if I'm not mistaken. So it was a pretty unique thing, and everybody was really blown away. But so I'm curious about, like, from a marketing perspective, was it something that really, paid off, or it was a surprise?
Look, definitively it was, to use your terminology, it paid off, and it contributed to the overall experience, not only, in Brazil and in Rio, but also worldwide. So without doubt. Those are all obviously anxious moments. I can tell you in Tokyo 2021, even though we should have been there in 2020, being there in an empty stadium with a capacity of 85,000 people and having 5G technology, being able to broadcast the opening ceremonies to the rest of the world, you're just anxious. You just want to make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted and everything goes without any serious challenge and so forth. And then you kind of move on, because basically the Olympics represents almost 35 world championships packed in over 16 days and so forth. But the opening ceremonies is a really important element at any Olympics. Rio just set that Olympics on fire, the way they brought that to and ignited what the Olympic spirit is in true kind of epic Brazilian style.
And I remember the closing ceremony. There was like this remarkable moment when the late Shinzo Abe came up dressed as Mario. And that was something that I think stuck to everybody as well. I don't know if you guys recall that. And I've been meaning to ask you this for a while. Who had this idea?
Someone from the Brazilian local Olympic Committee had that idea. And that's what's great about the Olympics, is it's a true sense of collaboration in terms of the delivery of that. And the closing ceremonies plays a different role in the Olympics. It's more of a festive for the athletes all together, but also for the fans in the stadium and viewing all around the world, the billions viewing around the world. You have to remember, these athletes are training, some people minimum 4 to 8 years, but all their life for their moment. And that's why when you have those Mario moments at the closing ceremony, it's really special.
Yeah, no, I bet. And of course, Tokyo must have been challenging because of the pandemic and everything. I think was something hopefully unique for the foreseeable future. And now that we're past through this and we look ahead to the Paris Olympics, this year, what are the expectations? What should we anticipate? Are we expecting something new, or is it going to be like a back to the basics type of thing? Like what's on your mind?
Yeah, so a little bit about Tokyo, having been there and been a participant. I think it was very successful, and the world needed the Olympics and what the values of the Olympics is about, and the hope it brings and the unity it tries to inspire people with. It was strange because I was there for 2 months, and there was no one. It was all in lockdown at that time. So it's also strange going to stadiums and swimming pools where there's no one. It's really, you could hear a pin dropped.
Mhm.
That's odd. And I overemphasize this point because Paris will be the opposite. This will be the people's games. And this is what will be about accessibility and inclusion. So the opening ceremonies won't be in a stadium. It will be in the Seine River. So there will be a flotilla of athletes going through down the river of Paris. You're going to have beach volleyball, not at the beach, but at the Eiffel Tower, and so forth. So as this is going to be about bringing the energy of the games as close to people on the ground as possible in ways that haven't been done, and then equally through innovation technology at home or on your mobile, whatever form content, whether you want to sit down and watch the entire opening ceremonies or what you would just want, 10 seconds of your favorite gymnastics on your mobile phone, and so forth. So it's about being accessible, is what these games were. Technology has led us down this path, but deliberately as a response to Beijing, the Winter Games in Beijing, that was followed by Tokyo, where it was restrictive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Amazing. And Chris, if I may go a little bit off script here, that is something that I'm curious, and also bringing back to
Sure.
our marketing topic here.
I didn't know we had a script, but
No,
I like
we
it.
we do have one here, like for us, the hosts.
Yeah.
So we keep this on the back pocket. But I'm curious to hear about the relationship with sponsors. And I feel like that over the years, of course, those sponsors change because interests change and everything. But how do you view this relationship? Over the years, because you spent quite some time, you've gone through a few games. How do you view the relationship between the International Olympic Committee and the sponsor changing over the years as generations change and as interest in the games change? If you could give some perspective on that.
I'll answer that question in reverse order, if I may. I think sponsors, sports is now entertainment, and it's a serious business. So you need a commercial element to fund the business and so forth. Increasingly, especially in the United States and especially in global soccer, that in Brazil, and other international sports like Formula One, this is serious finances being contributed over time. This is not corporate gifts. These aren't donations. These are a business investment to drive the key performance indicators and the overall goals, missions, objectives of the organization, and so forth. So, and nowhere is that more important than the Olympics. And specifically, the Olympics is a value-based organization. It's an NGO. If I told you that out of 100% of the revenue they raise, which is through media broadcasts and also sponsorship, that 90% of it gets redistributed each and every day. So 4.3 million US dollars each day is redistributed somewhere around the world. No days off, 365 days a year, somewhere around the world for the development of sport and the value of sport and the grassroots and educational, gender equality, inclusion and diversity and sustainability initiatives in all the continents and so forth. That comes from sponsors and so forth. So over time, I think the sponsors as it relates to the Olympics have become increasingly more important as it's become the costs of staging international events have become increased. And then secondly, I think over time, the Olympics has found its way to fit that there's it's not just about the money, it's also about the values of the organization, and so forth. And do they generally believe in not only promoting their business goals, but also the Olympic movement, and so forth. And I think over time, you've seen a better fit in doing that, is one thing I would say change, and so forth. You know, a brand and a company, we're all very feel fortunate of being Emory alumni or Emory employees or Emory students, is the Coca-Cola company, just because of the intricate relationship. Now they've been Olympic sponsors since 1928. And so forth, when the games were in Amsterdam, where I am today. And from afar, you can say, wow, that's a sugar soft drink product with the Olympics, which is promoting health. Well, first of all, it's a beverage company now, and they have more healthy beverages than unhealthy beverages. But secondly, importantly, with the Coca-Cola company, grew the Olympic opportunity because of their international scale, and continues to do it, and brings the Olympics places in between the periods of the actual Olympic Games where we can't, as an organization, and so forth.
Very interesting. And I think one last question from me, and then we open to the rest of the audience,
Sure.
and if everyone else want to ask question. But in terms of the main product of the games, which is actually, the sport, we've seen like new sports being added over the years. I think last one was surf and skate. And this year, I don't know which ones are going to be new, but is that like a marketing decision? Is that a financial decision? Like, how do you, of course, there's the whole sport component, but should we expect, in a few games to see pickleball because it's picking up, interest in the US, something like that's going to sell more? How do you guys, think about that?
Yeah, so the international, what the world changes. So the Olympics has to make appropriate points of evolution, and the International Olympic Committee is bounded by something called the Olympic Charter, which comes back from development in 2 centuries ago, in the development of the Olympic principles and movement and putting on the games. And one of the couple of points is, one is the games have to be accessible to all people, all mankind. So that's why you'll always have the Olympics on free to air television somewhere in every country in some way. That's number one. Not exclusively on free to air, but if you want to watch it, you can. Two is the games have to be relevant to all audiences. So this is, Rafa, the answer of why in Paris you're going to be seeing not only surfing and skating, which were introduced, you're going to see BMX, you're going to see 3-on-3 basketball, you're going to see breakdancing, breaking, because these are relevant sports to what is called Generation Alpha and Millennials and Gen X and so forth. So Gen Z, sorry. That's the reason. It's not marketing. It's really a core of what you're doing. And then importantly, what research has said is people are interested in seeing both genders participate in the sports together. So there's going to be a lot more mixed events over time, increasingly from each games on, to do it. That doesn't mean the Olympics intends to just keep growing and scaling. It also means making some hard decisions of what sports are maybe less relevant or have to be tweaked, or instead of having 24 disciplines of canoe kayak, it's 10, and out of the 10, 5 are mixed gender, and so forth. One of the most heartwarming events, I'll share this with you, was the triathlon team event in Tokyo, which started off, by the way, at 5:30 in the morning because it was so hot and humid. Tokyo in the summer is very similar to Atlanta in the summer. It's just a bigger city, so the cement retains the humidity at all times. And it was very interesting to see these teams, which basically it's a relay through the different legs of a triathlon. Male to female to male to female to male alternate. And there's something about both genders working together as a team that's powerful. And it's a personal point of attraction as well. And I think over time, that's an example of where it's not just women running and men running, and so forth. And that may be reflective of, what's going on in the greater part of the world.
Amazing. Great perspective. I think this is it from me, Nat, Jenny. I'll hand it over to you guys now. See if you want to open the, for the audience, or if you want to do some remarks. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Rafa. Thank you, Christopher. That has been amazing. I feel like I'm gonna have to go back and just like watch it again and like take down all of the notes because it has been really wonderful. But before moving into closing remarks, I would just love to open it up to anyone that's connected to see if you guys have any questions or anything that you would like for Christopher to kind of give his input on. Before I ask my question, and then we can give closing remarks. So I guess as people think, so if you were to kind of summarize everything, Christopher, and just say like, how do I become successful? I know you've taken opportunities. This is something I've seen. You've taken a lot of opportunities. You've been open-minded, and you've kind of seen where one career path can, open greater doors in another, regardless of the country we were going in. But how would you kind of summarize it all for anyone that's here in the room?
Wow, that is a tough question. It's just summarize it all. Good question. I would say be yourself, number one. And part of being yourself is being vulnerable. There isn't a playbook to go being an international business person. There isn't, I mean, there are courses and there are universities and that you can get the applied learning and the technical skill set, but actually being able to go apply that and be able to build a relationship with a Brazilian or a Nigerian or a Chinese person, you have to be vulnerable, and you have to be in being vulnerable, you have to go ahead, and it's not just about taking risk, it's being able to accept that sometimes things fail, sometimes things aren't meant to be, and so forth. So it sounds soft, but it's really important in terms of the business context. And second, just keep adding technical skills that are transferable to your toolbox as you go around and so forth. The agricultural sector in Brazil or in South America or Uruguay is so different than in Europe. And so forth, and acquiring skills, if you're interested in that sector, hypothetically, in different areas of the world is going to add weapons in your toolbox, I would say. And I think you just have to be, in the business world, result focused. It's not about projects, it's about whatever your business is, whether it's your own business, whether it's a small business, whether it's a public business, whether it's a private business, you're a member of a team. What is your part and your role leading into that team? Just like we're all members of the Emory community. What is our role in making Emory a better community, and leaving Emory in a better place than we even inherited it, and so forth. So it's having that perspective of what your role is and being vulnerable at the same time is how I would summarize it.
That was amazing. That was really, really good. And I think, we're all here because we love, the international community, and we do want to make the world and Emory a better place. So I just wanted to thank everyone for being here. And I'm going to pass the mic along to Sherry Jones, who oversees part of our regional team that works with alumni all over as well. And she's going to give us some closing remarks as well.
Thanks, Jenny. I want to thank you all for joining us for today's International Networks webinar with Christopher Carroll, former Director of Marketing for the International Olympic Committee. We appreciate your participation and insightful questions. Stay connected with Emory for more enriching events in the future, and be sure to update your information on our website to receive information regarding the events happening in your area. And if there are no other questions, we want to say thank you again and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Sherry. I do see one more question there. Would you mind answering that, Christopher, if you have time?
Sure. No, I'm here for Emory. I'm here for everyone connected here. So yes, and I like questions, because I will share with everyone, I didn't get to benefit from what the team in Atlanta is doing in the international work. Emory has really internationalized a lot more since I was at Oxford and in Atlanta at Emory College. So please feel free.
Awesome. I believe it says, how have you built your network once arriving in a new environment? So
Yeah.
say you went to Mexico, or how
Yeah.
do you do it?
So that is a valuable question. And then for those that have already, and I saw in the chat, some people have lived in Shanghai and they're back in Atlanta, or Rafa, who's lived in different countries as well. Get active doing your hobbies. If you like soccer, go play soccer. If you like to play the cello, go do it. If you like food, certain food, go do it. Get embedded in everyday life, and then you establish a network. That is the weapon versus taking the formal professional network. Everyone's trying to do that and build a professional network in your local markets. Get stuck in and embed yourself into the society based on your passions, because then you've got already a mutual friend, whatever it may be. So how I did it, I played tennis at Emory, as you know. I've been somehow fortunate enough to still have a passion for it, even though I don't look like, nor do I play like I used to on the roof at the Woodruff Center anymore. But nevertheless, that has kind of been a language that I've been able to play. I just need a racket, balls, and I've played tennis in 40 countries or some other places, and you establish your network that way.
That's awesome. And I feel like it's something that might seem small, but it could have very significant impact no matter where you are. So that's really great advice. So I believe it's Guido, I'm not sure. He says, how have you navigated politics in your career, both internal, in private organizations and multicultural organizations, such as the IOC?
Oh boy. Great question, Guido. Hola. I mean, over time, you become aware of what politics are in any organization, because there are politics in every organization. Every organization, every unit of a group of more than 4 people, there's politics and so forth. But specifically, as I have learned by failing and not, working through politics well, I have been able to formalize it's called a stakeholder tree, and understanding all the stakeholders that you work with or interact with and what their role is, and actually set up a plan every 100 days on what your interaction is going to be with those stakeholders. It sounds formal. It sounds maybe admin, but it's really not. And these stakeholders may be as formal as touch points, depending upon your organization and what the politics and what dimension of the politics are, may be as formal as providing presenting them quarterly results proactively, not responding, but proactively doing it. Or it may be as informal as a check-in for a lunchtime on the fourth Thursday of every month, and so forth. So at the IOC, for example, I was it was a new business unit, a new division, this marketing. It was basically a direct to consumer business. So I had a lot of education. So myself and my team were constantly, we were constantly, educating and building bridges and awareness for what we were doing in the organization so that we could partner with them and take them along in the journey. And I'm sure the team in Atlanta is trying to do this right now as they build out our international alumni capabilities. No pressure, Natalie and team, no pressure, but
No pressure at all.
that is another unscripted moment here.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
so in short,
wonderful.
it's like building alliances and then having a set agenda and being consistent. Is that how
Yeah.
could summarize that?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah. But you need to budget that into your time. So that discipline isn't something that, in the craze of the business world, and especially where time now, for those that have been working a while in their professional careers, speed is now so important in anything and everything we do. There was speed, there was cost, and there was quality. And, the theory was you could only have two of the three, but you couldn't have all three. Which two of the three of speed, quality and cost would you want? But now speed, everything has to be delivered now, and so forth. So it's budgeting that time to manage your stakeholder tree accordingly.
Thank you.
That's
Wonderful.
excellent advice. Thank you. I'm taking notes. I'm going to start doing that more actively in my role. Thank you.
Um,
I've done it well, and I've done it many times not well. And at the beginning of my career, I didn't do it well. So it's really learning from failing or not doing well. And that's for all of us.
no, that's wonderful. Do we have any more questions in the room? Sherry says that the best lessons come from failing, and I agree with that. Well, this has been amazing. Again, Christopher, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation and just giving insights into your career. I'll be sure to pass your information with everyone that registered for the event, and also include Rafa's and Natalie's and Sherry's and anyone else. I'm happy to be that connector. Thank you so much for supporting the international community. We are working really hard because we want you all to have all of the resources, like Christopher was saying, to be successful and to connect whenever possible. So it means a lot to us. And in order for us to do that, I'm going to share just a quick slide right here where you can kind of, if you want to, there's a ton of QR codes, but we have access to the Global Strategy and Initiatives Office. You can also find other international networks regardless of where you are. And you can put that information on there. And also, a lot of times, the way that our email system works is based on your address. So if you have moved to a different location, and you haven't updated your information on Emory's systems, we would ask if you will kindly do that so that we can send you the most current information, and that way you can stay updated and engaged. And then if you are in Europe, we have a couple of suppression rules that we have to follow. So you have to fill out an additional form so that you can receive all of our communication. So the slides are there. You can connect with me via LinkedIn as well. You can always send me an email, and I'm always happy to serve as a connector and connect you with alumni such as Christopher around the world. So thank you guys so much. We're going to try to do one of these again in the fall. And if you have any topics that you would like for us to cover, just kindly let us know, and we'll love that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Really, I'm taking a picture here so I can show everyone. Everyone smile.
Hey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you know, once an eagle, always an eagle is what I would say for everyone, regardless of where that eagle is sleeping at night in any place around the world. So look forward to connecting with any of you. And if any of you come to Europe, let me know in advance.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Chris.
Christopher.
It's been
Thank
amazing.
you.
Pleasure. Bye bye.
Bye,
Ciao, ciao.
everyone.